Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Voice for Advocates podcast. We are doing our weekly one. We skipped last week because I was in Washington, D.C. I am Stell Bailey. I am the executive director of Fight for Zero. I'm also a writer behind the Advocates Voice and a leader in the National PFAS Contamination Coalition. Elizabeth?
I'm Elizabeth Baker. I am a proud Fight for Zero volunteer, and I also run a small company called I Pick Up Litter.
Libby Levette, statewide advocate, founder of Volusia and Brevard County Environmental Alliance.
My name is Chance Jummer. I'm the founder of Recall Florida. I want to thank you, Stell, for inviting me on today, and I look forward to our discussion.
Okay, so we're going to get right into it. So we invited Recall Florida here today because we want to learn about what Recall Florida is and the process. So we're just going to start off, Chance, with how did you get started into this advocacy work? Back in
2020, there was a lot of things going on in our country, and I spent a lot of time in front of Facebook doing nothing. I was a mighty meme warrior, and people are frustrated. You can kind of feel the sense of frustration with people, and I have a big problem with government officials not doing what they're supposed to do and not being ethical in the things that they're required to do. So I started asking questions. What can we do as citizens to hold them accountable? And they said, well, there's nothing you can do to hold them accountable. I said, well, what about recall? They said, we don't have recall in this county. And, I found that kind of frustrating. So I started doing some research, asking some questions. And what ended up happening was, after a discussion with a lobbyist, believe it or not, he told me about Florida Statute 100.361, which gives citizens of 20 charter counties and municipalities the right to recall. He said, if you want to try and change things, start here.
Wow. Well, that'll take me to my next question. What exactly is Recall Florida?
That's a good question. Because if you think about Recall Florida, you can take the static, run-of-the-mill 501c4 organization of activists that are looking to hold their county-level politicians accountable, or you can look at it as we are a body of passionate people. Recall Florida is not so much an entity as it is a body of people that are fed up with county commissioners, profiteers, serving their own interest and not that of those that they are elected to represent.
Where are you guys located? Where's Recall? Is it all of Florida you represent? Is there a specific location? Where's your main office at?
We're positioned in the Panhandle in Santa Rosa County, but we have members in 64 counties. Before Facebook started changing their algorithm, we were tracking the counties. That was one of the questions that you had to answer if you wanted to be a part of the Recall Florida page. So we started tracking that. You can go to Recall Florida, and we have a map, and every county that's underlined in red represents a member of Recall Florida.
I guess we're going to get into why would someone want to recall an elected official? They elected him, right? But why would they want to recall them?
A lot of people are intimately involved in their daily events that are going on in their counties. They're watching their Board of County Commissioner meetings. They're watching the chess playing that's going on and the promises that are being made and the handshakes that are going on with builders and developers outside of the boardroom. And some people start digging, and pretty soon if they dig hard enough, they can find some foolishness that's going on. And sometimes it's illegal. Sometimes it borders on illegal. A lot of times it's highly unethical. So they feel as if this individual no longer represents them, that this individual has violated the public trust of those that are within the county. And they've gone to them, they've talked to them, they've given this person a chance to right the error of his ways, and they're just not changing. They're straight course ahead. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and you're a citizen, or it's nothing you can do about it.
So, Chance, what kind of offenses would actually justify a recall with an elected official?
There are 7 recallable offenses: malfeasance, misfeasance, neglect of duty, drunkenness, incompetence, permanent inability to perform official duties, and conviction of a felony involving moral turpitude.
Could you explain maybe a little bit about what the difference between malfeasance and misfeasance would be?
Sure. Malfeasance is an act that is illegal and causes physical or monetary harm to someone else. Malfeasance is intentional conduct that is wrongful or unlawful, especially by officials or public employees. Now, when we talk about misfeasance, it's a legal term that refers to the improper performance of a lawful act that results in harm or injury to another person or entity.
There's Mike Waller says, keep sending waves, brother. Erosion is inevitable. That's one of our comments coming through right now. So we have people watching and really interested in this topic. And I think it's really important for Floridians to learn about this process. Speaking of the process, so we have experienced personally where we live a lot of the things you're talking about. And I guess we'll get more into why is this process so crucial for Floridians?
You know, I focus on Florida, of course, recall Florida, but corruption in local government, in my mind is like a virus. It starts to take over everything, and our government, the foundation of our counties, everything that goes on within the counties goes through the hands of our government officials. And if you have a corrupt county government, the corrupt structure, it takes away public trust. And when the citizens cannot trust their public officials, they don't feel safe. And Americans want to feel safe. They have families to raise, they have jobs to do, they want to grow a family, they want to enjoy life, and without having to worry about some jackleg over in the corner that decides he wants to build subdivisions around a Superfund site. And that's another story altogether. We won't get into much detail about that, but
it's like a domino effect, right? So if you have one bad apple, it kind of rottens out the rest of them. And like you're saying, it erodes trust with the general public. We've had those instances here where we live where they've done things like intentionally shunning us out of publicly posted meetings and cherry picking who's allowed to go in that meeting and who isn't allowed to go in that meeting. I'm sure we could go through numerous examples, and maybe we'll do that soon. But let's get into, if somebody wants to recall their elected official for all the reasons you stated, what is that process?
It's a long process. And the first thing I think you have to really have an eye for is do you have public backing? Because if you don't have public backing, there's no reason to even step off the edge. Because in the end, you're going to have 51% of the citizens voting for your action. And if you don't have the will of the people behind you, it's a failed effort. So, you kind of have to feel that out and make sure that's there before you even get started. And then, after that, you put your petition together. Why are you recalling this official? Is it for malfeasance, misfeasance? And the petition has to be 200 words or less. If it's over 200 words, it's not going to be accepted. So you have to be very clear in your petition process. I'm just going to read from here because there's a lot of information. From the time the recall petition is approved for circulation, signatures must be collected within 30 days. So you have 30 days to collect X number of signatures, and it depends on the population of the district that you're trying to recall. If you have, say, you have a county commissioner that was elected by all of your districts, then you have to have a percentage of that. Depending on the population of all of those districts together, you have to have a specific percentage of that as far as the petitions. And those that have contacted us, I've always encouraged them to go beyond the requirement, because those that are within the public offices, they may be friends with the person that's being recalled. So they're going to find every way that they possibly can to throw out petitions and make the petition process null and void. So you want to go far beyond your signature requirement, which lessens the chance of the recall being done with for lack of signatures. And after that, once the signatures are collected, the designated chair of the recall committee that collected the signatures must present them to the auditor or clerk of the municipality or charter county or his or her equivalent. If the county supervisor of elections determines that sufficient signatures have been filed to force a recall election, he or she must provide a written statement to that effect to the clerk of the relevant jurisdiction. That clerk must then at once serve upon the person sought to be recalled a certified copy of the petition. Within 5 days after service, the person sought to be recalled may file with the clerk a defensive statement of not more than 200 words. So they can defend themselves against the recall. They just have to do it in 200 words or less. Once the 5 days have elapsed, the clerk must then prepare a form called the recall petition and defense, which includes the defense statement from the recall target, but only if the recall target provides such a defense statement. And then you go for your second set of signatures. After receiving the recall petition and defense, the recall committee must then collect more signatures equaling 15% of the electors in the relevant jurisdiction within 60 days after the time that the recall petition and defense was delivered, jurisdiction clerk to the chair of the recall committee. Once collected, the second set of signatures are given to the county supervisor of election, along with 10 cents for each name to be checked. The supervisor of elections must inspect the second set of signature within 30 days. After it's determined that sufficient signatures were filed to force a recall collection, the recall target is given 5 days to provide a written resignation. If the recall target chooses not to resign at this point, the chief judge of the judicial circuit in which the municipality is located shall fix a day for holding a recall election. The date for the recall election must be not less than 30 days or more than 60 days after expiration of the 5-day period given the recall target for tendering his or her resignation. So once you have the petition, the chief judge will set up for a day for an election after you meet the recall requirement, the petition requirements. And once it goes to election, this is where we go back to what I said in the beginning. You have to have support of the people, because you have to have 51% that say, I want this person gone. Or 51% that says, you haven't convinced me.
We have a question coming from Mike Waller. He said, how important are non-Floridians to these signatures?
Non-Floridians, to my knowledge, have they cannot even participate in this process.
I'd like to speak on that actually, because the rule is they must be registered voters within the district that the elected official is to be recalled. whether you're talking about a municipality, whether you're talking about the county level, whether you're talking about the state level. It has to be the registered voters within that person's jurisdiction. So like he was referring to, if it's a city, you need a percentage of the registered voters within that city. If it's a county, if the elected official is, say, a county chair or an at-large representative, you need a percentage of the whole county's voters. If
Correct.
it's say a district rep, somebody that represents just one district, you need the registered voters within that district. So that's the crux of it. And you have to be registered at the time that those petitions are counted. You have to be a registered voter, and your information must match the information that you enter on the petition, or the clerk will disregard that, disqualify that signature. And that's another reason that you aim high, because you just expect that a certain percentage of signatures will be disqualified.
That's
Correct.
not to say that people outside of Florida or even outside of an area can't be important in helping, spreading the word, or even making a donation to an organization such as yours when they're trying to raise the funds for that 10 cents a signature would be super helpful. So
That's a very good point. I mean,
yeah.
after 4 years, I know you guys face the same things that we do. We have a handful of very dedicated people that are willing to go that extra mile to travel to Tallahassee and speak on our behalf, or send some letters, that kind of thing. But all in all, it's hard to find help when you want to really push these representatives and these senators to the point where listen to what you have to say.
And I think with so many snowbirds and so many people that, have homes down here and own property down here, but they don't necessarily live here or registered to vote here, getting involved somehow is not only helpful to us, it helps them. And, it's still their community, whether they live here full time or not. They may spend 6 months out of the year here, and it is a second home. And we encourage that. Florida loves the snowbirds. We need them for our economy. So getting them also knowing about this process and how they can spread the word to maybe other people that they know that are also snowbirds and doing the same thing is I think that's we all have to work together no matter where we are.
The allies are really critical too, because even though they may not be able, like you say, to sign these petitions, we need those allies. This is a Herculean process in a very short marathon style time frame, and we need all hands on deck. So we need people canvassing, going to events, licking and sealing envelopes, perfecting petitions, making sure that the information is accurately entered, because there's also an opportunity to kind of hit the nonprofit that brings this measure. If there are disqualifying a lot of petition signatures. I don't know, Chance, if you can speak to that, but I know that is an issue that we face when dealing with petitions.
Petitions are the first part of the whole process. Crescent City, I know Crescent City is going through just a nightmare right now when it comes to the recall process. They've got 2 individuals over there, that one in particular that they've attempted to recall twice. And the courts have gotten involved. And the last legal brief that I read appeared to be a contradiction to me. But going back to the petition, the first time they tried to recall their city councilman, they tried to pull the petition from wherever it was that they had processing it 4 times. Every single time it had an error on it. So if you didn't check the recall petition before you picked it up and took it out to have it signed, you get all these signatures, you bring it back and it's got an error on it. I believe that it was sabotaged before they even came to pick it up. That's my personal opinion. Can't prove that, but the petition thing is huge. And you have to think outside the box when it comes to the petition process. I've come up with some ideas on that. I think a drive-up signing is a great way to get some petitions. You know, if you broadcast that and you put that out there, people don't even have to get out of their vehicles. They can drive up. Hey, you know, I believe what you guys are doing. I think it's great. Where do I sign? You sign, they're gone. You know, easy in and out. Because you got to make it as easy for them as possible, because they have jobs and families and stuff like that, and tracking these people down can be extremely difficult.
So have there been successful recalls in the state of Florida?
There have been successful recalls. There's another one going on in Isla Morta right now. I don't know if I've stirred the pots. Everybody's wanting to recall now, but if you go through the years, the breakdown of the years in Florida, it averages 3 to 4 attempts every year. I think we're working on our 5th one this year. So there was a Howie in the Hills one, James McGill in 2020, Cynthia Burton in Crescent City. That was a successful recall, but the judge stepped in and stopped that deal. I think there's one going on down in Miami Dade right now, I think. So all in all, there's about a 30% success rate for recall.
That's pretty good.
70% are kicked to the curb.
You mentioned something that I think we probably should talk about, which is judges getting involved and possibly the votes don't count. Tell us how that could happen.
About the votes not counting?
Well, we could go through this process and then it gets challenged, ends up in the hands of a judge, and it may be quashed at that level. Tell us how that could happen.
I think one of the things that I've seen the most, there was one in the city of Apopka. I talked to the individual that was leading the recall in the city of Apopka, and she was strictly passion driven. Some people are so pissed off at what's going on in their cities. They're just strictly driven by passion. I gave her the recall statute. I said, look, you need to read this. You need to study through it. You need to take notes, so on and so forth. I don't think she did any of that, because she was so confident that she was such a strong person that she was just going to put that out there and people were going to come and sign it, and this mayor was going to be recalled. Passion is the worst thing to get involved when it comes to recall. This is a dry, meticulous, by the numbers kind of process that you have to go through if you want to recall an individual, and you have to take passion out of the equation, because that's almost for sure a death knell.
So we know we can recall state representatives, elected officials on county boards and cities, but what are some other positions that would, I guess, be vulnerable to recall?
Let me correct you on that. State officials cannot be recalled.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There's only 19 states in our country that can recall state officials.
We are not one of them.
We are not one of them. But over the last week, I would be lying to you if I didn't say I had not seriously considered throwing a wrench in the whole thing and just saying, okay, let's recall them all. Because I think the Florida psyche is about ready for that. But
I think a lot of people are fed up. Absolutely.
When it comes to recall currently in the state of Florida, in 1968, Florida Statute 100.361 was written with the creation of the charter counties. This allows charter counties to recall their elected officials. You've got your county commissioners, you've got your sheriff, your property appraiser, your tax collector, your clerk of court. I'm not sure. I know Brevard County just put in a charter amendment in their charter to be able to recall school board members. They were actually successful in that. And just today, researching for this podcast, I found out that you can actually recall your HOA leader. So,
Wow.
yeah. So with the right process.
It's interesting you say that. We have a local community right now dealing with an HOA issue with their pool situation. It's just an HOA on a pool house. And so hopefully we could share this with them and let them know they have this as an option.
Yep, I have that.
What are some other ways? Sorry, what are some other ways, Chance, though, that might fail? You mentioned that passion is a death nail. What are some other things that we might avoid? Some pitfalls that we might avoid?
Being hasty in your choice of recallable offenses. There is there's something going on within the courts right now that I find kind of interesting, because I've read some attorney general opinions back when I first started the Recall Florida movement, and the courts are very hesitant to get involved. We're very hesitant to get involved in the recall process to say whether this is good or whether this is bad. That's changing. And it's changing pretty quick with the Crescent City findings. I think what the judge is doing, the judicial system is doing, is setting precedents with these rulings that they're coming out with. So when you decide that you want to recall an individual, number one, I would say pick one thing that you feel best fits a recallable offense. I go back to the city of Apopka when they created their petition. They had like 5 recallable offenses all jammed into one petition. Craziest thing I ever seen. And it was a poorly written petition. So choose that one thing, find your supporting documentation, and then sit down and craft your petition and pass it around. I mean, you got to take another thing you got to take out of this process is pride. Nobody cares. You can't say, well, this is my petition and, I want to get all the credit for this recall. Don't do that. You got to be able to take your petition and pass it to this person, because they may have a different eye about it than you do. And they could say, well, let's change this one word. She only got 200 words. And you put that information in there, you pass it to the next person. Well, let's change this one. And then by the time it gets around to several people and you've crafted a beautiful, perfect petition, you had an attorney look at it. He said, yep, looks good to me. If you have an attorney, that's kind of a buffer of protection before you end up submitting it to the court. So if that's an option, I would say always put it before an attorney.
I was going to ask you, because writing for a lot of people, just writing a simple email for many people is intimidating. So I can't even imagine somebody putting together a petition. So I guess my next question is what resources do they have? And you just kind of answered it with finding an attorney. Do you have any other avenues they can take to help them draft a petition like that?
Well, they're always welcome to contact us at Florida Recall 2020, and we'll help them put that together. We're not going to do your homework for you, but if you want to send me the information that you have, between me and my co-founder, Carmen Reynolds, still, I know you've talked to Carmen several times. She is a fabulous person, a trove of knowledge. And she writes extremely well. It's second nature for her. So between the two of us, I think we could scratch out a petition pretty quickly.
Now, you mentioned committee a few times, and that's not something we've talked about. And I like the thought of passing this around and making it something that everyone can agree on the language, because I think that's real important. You want everyone to sign it. So if everyone feels they've been a part of authoring it, it certainly gives them ownership. But going back to the committee, is that a task then that the committee needs to be established and then start shopping the language of the petition around? Can you walk us through the steps of formulating that committee and what they would be responsible for?
Well, the committee pretty much, it doesn't have to be an official. One contacted me, they were going to establish an LLC or something like that for a committee. You don't have to go to that extent. It could be the three of you guys and two more people that are just passionate about removing an individual, and they become the recall committee. So, and when it comes to crafting the petition, you may sit down, and all of you guys have college degrees. You speak extremely well. You put together a petition. It's beautiful. And then you take it out there and you submit it to a guy that dropped out of school in his sophomore year. And he's interested in what you have to say. He reads the body text of your petition, but doesn't quite fully understand it. So what you want to do when you put that petition together, you want to make sure that you put it in very clean language, no big words. We're not using Queen's English here, so, but that's pretty, I hope I answered your question on the committee.
So Chance, has there ever been a situation where somebody was recalled and then turned around and ran for office and ended up back in that same seat?
Well, according to the statute, that individual cannot run for 2 years.
Fantastic.
So they can be recalled, but they can't run again for 2 years. Okay. And so it becomes the citizens' responsibility for that community to pay attention. When they come back, you've got your vetting committee, whatever committee that's interviewing these new candidates that are running for office. Say, weren't you recalled 2 years ago? Why are you back here? Why do you think that we're going to trust you again?
Yep, those are good questions for that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a period of time you have to wait after an official is elected before you can begin the recall of that official? Like if they were just elected like 6 months ago or 3 months ago, is there a time period?
He has to be able to serve a quarter of his time before you can bring a recall petition against him or her.
So if it's 4 years, they've got to have a year, most are 4 years. Some are 2 years. That would be 6 months.
Correct.
Have any recall processes failed in Florida?
Many recall processes have failed. Some have resigned. The judges have gotten involved in several of them. Petitions have been thrown out for bad petitions. A lot of them have failed.
Can judges be recalled?
No.
Okay. We're all like, okay. So you talked about earlier how there are certain counties that do have the recall process and ones that do not?
Correct.
How many do in the state of Florida?
20 counties have the right to recall.
Out of 67?
Correct.
Interesting.
And that's what we've been fighting for, is 47 counties to have that same right. And, to the best of our estimation, that's 6 million people.
Wow.
Now, the charter counties, they are your main population centers around the state of Florida. So there's a lot of people involved in that. But, the post-COVID era, we've had a lot of people move into Florida. So those numbers are steadily increasing. And, one of the things about our Florida Constitution, it says all political power is inherent in the people. So why does that not, our elected officials are elected according to our consent. So if they lose that consent and all political power is inherent in the people, then why do we not have the power to remove them when we say, no, you don't represent me anymore?
That's so true. I think oftentimes we find ourselves electing someone that we thought was going to represent us, and they end up serving the corporations, and in our case with environment and our water quality, the industries that are polluting it, taking even, for instance, I just got back from DC, and the industries are trying to escape liability with pollution that they knew was harmful to the environment and our health. So we're combating that, but those people that are sitting in office that are meant to serve us, they're not really serving us. They're serving those corporations and the industries and their lobbyists, and they don't have a backbone to really stand up to them, which is really frustrating. Somebody said because most of the people are not awake.
They're not awake, but here's the thing: it's because of it. It becomes the responsibility of folks like me and you, Stel, and Libby. And I'm sorry, this is the first time we've met,
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Yes. It becomes our responsibility as leaders to educate those within our communities and be able to spread that message around, because people are starting to wake up. And we have to hold to our Constitution. And we even, we should know more about our Constitution than we do. But we need to be brought up to speed. And we need to be patient with people and talk to them and explain to them what's going on, and not let our frustration get in the way of the whole thing. We've been in business. Some people have been fighting this fight for 30 years. We've only been here like 4 years, and we still have people that are trying to write our story. Oh, you're a Democrat, and that's what Recall Florida is about. You're a Democrat, and you're trying to recall Republicans. No, stupid. That's not how it is. George Washington talked about recall. James Madison talked about recall. I have quotes from the 17th century when they were talking about recall. And we have to get out there, and we cannot let them write our narrative, because if they write our narrative, that's not our story. We have to write our own story.
Well, and we have to be able to hold our elected officials accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bottom line. I mean, they are supposed to be working for us, regardless of what party they're in, regardless of who voted for them in that community and got them into that seat. They are to represent the people in that area, whether it's a county or a city. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that they work for us.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they're not there to make corporations money. They're not there to pat each other on the backs. Their job is to effectively execute the will of the people. That's
Correct.
it.
Correct.
And speaking of the will of the people, a Facebook user asked the question, does that go on a referendum once the petitions go through that process?
Are you talking about the recall process?
Yeah, so they get the petitions, they get the right number of petitions. Somebody's asking a question about, does that go on a referendum?
Or can it?
I don't guess I
understand when you say
referendum. I don't either, because I think what I understood was once those petitions are certified in that final stage, the recall is complete. The elected official is in fact then removed, and then they have that, immediately they have to have that special election, right? So it's not a referendum.
Well, the citizens of the county have to come and vote for that individual to be removed. 51% of the citizens have to vote in conjunction with the petitions.
Oh.
That they have to vote for that individual to be removed. So you could get the required number of petitions and only get 49% of the people that come and vote for that person to be removed. They're not removed.
I see.
So that's why we go back to, that's why you have to make sure you have the public support. So there's one individual in Southwest Florida. I won't give any names. Wants to recall a particular individual, and I said to her, you need to start teaching the people in your area about what's going on with this individual. Start creating an understanding of why this is wrong. Don't just cram recall. Explain why you're recalling them. And you may start 6 months out. You may start 8 months to a year out before you want to move forward with something like that, because you want these people educated. You want them fired up. You want them angry, because angry voters make things happen.
They sure do.
So by then, I agree. I think it would take that long to educate enough people to really feel confident about being able to complete the process in the time frame. And so if you think about that time frame, that often takes you to the next election cycle. And I sort of feel like it's still an important process, and people maybe should not become comfortable in the fact that, oh, we just won't vote them in next time.
Never
Because
worked like
oftentimes
that.
that recall process, even if it fails, can be successful in preventing them from getting elected next election cycle. So I
Yeah,
don't see it as a waste, even if it's a loss,
absolutely.
if it's done well.
Because there's always a chance that that individual could be reelected. In our county, I won't say our county. That's unfair. I've seen this process go on. Say, I love Jesus, 2A, and Trump, and you're probably going to get reelected because you have good, hardworking people out there, blue collar people. And this comment is not intended to be demeaning to anybody, but you have a blue collar base out there that they don't have time to get involved in politics. They're working their ass off just to try and make a living and support their family.
Yep.
And these politicians who are going to these strategy sessions, and they have this money for these marketing specialists and stuff, and these guys know exactly what to say, and they put it out there and they suck these people in, and they don't know that this guy's a crook. They don't know, but they just know that he loves Jesus, he loves President Trump, and he supports the Second Amendment. So I'm going to vote for him. And meanwhile, this guy, backroom deal, he's talking to the developers and the builders, and he's like, "Oh, you want to build in wetlands and marshes? No problem, I got you." So
It's unfortunate. We see that kind of scenario all the time throughout the entire state. I know we see it locally, we see it in our cities, we see it on a county level. We see that scenario all the time where they put out this wonderful narrative. Look at me, I'm a family man. I can make homemade cookies, and I went to church with your grandma. And
right.
But in the meantime, they're like, sure, go ahead and build that building there. Yeah, no problem. The water's dirty. Everybody go swim in it. Like, it's insane. It really
hit a
is
nerve with
insane.
us. You said backdoor deals.
Yeah.
You hit a nerve because honestly, I think that kind of takes me personally to the heart of whenever I think of recall, it's the backdoor deals that trigger that thought process in my head. I get really mad because it's clear there's a backdoor deal going on, like with the fuel farm up in Volusia County. A backdoor deal absolutely happened there, and we're trying to uncover it. When we do, that community may want to follow the recall process. I can tell you, I do believe there's enough people today, if they knew today who did that backdoor deal, I feel like it would be a no-brainer. They'd get it done less than 30 days. I truly believe that in Ormond Beach. So when I hear about the backdoor deals, that brings me to the question of what is that? If there's a backdoor deal, what recallable offense does that fall under?
I think it depends on the action and the kind of action that you're able to pinpoint on that deal. Is it, I am pretty passionate about 2 points that I've found in Florida statute. You want to get me fired up, get me talking about these couple of points. There is a Florida statute that deals with contractual relationships. Many of our county commissioners are realtors, are 44% of our legislature. You and I have talked about this some, Libby, deals with home development and builders, things of that. 44%. For instance, in our county, we have a county commissioner that is no longer in office. He bought some property. I can't prove this. I think he was in cahoots with the property appraiser who undervalued the property, $70,000, 5 acres, sold it to a developer for $500,000. 3 acres were usable. 2 acres were under a power line. He built a motor home, RV, like an RV place for folks to come. Nice place. But a county commissioner cannot get involved in a contractual relationship with an entity that they have authority over. That's in Florida statute. That's against the law, period. So I think if I had enough people around the state and we can make a loud enough noise on the contractual relationship, I have some, I don't want to give away all my secrets, but I have some connections with some journalists around make a loud enough noise with factual information about what's going on. And we start pressing those entities that are responsible for holding our public officials accountable for these backroom deals, if they're contractual relationships or if they're getting paid gobs of money for beyond market average price, they should be held accountable. Because if you go to the Florida Constitution and you start looking at what it says about violation of public trust, it says if they're found guilty of that, they have to pay that money that they've profited. They have to pay it back. So if you took that money from them because you pressed that issue, it'd only take 2 or 3. It'd only take 2 or 3 before the rest of them would stand up and pay attention.
So please, everybody that's listening and watching this, do your due diligence, do your investigation, because that's the information you need to uncover. We all are looking for that information on some individuals right now. And again, I can't name names, but we've got some ideas of who in Volusia County is behind the fuel farm, and we need everybody investigating, because as Chance said, somebody else is going to look at the information with a different eye, and they're going to see something that we're missing and be able to connect some dots. And we all need to be doing our due diligence on this and sharing the data. Can't emphasize enough, share the data.
Go back to your property appraiser site to who owned the property prior to the sale of it and see who was involved in that purchase. See if it was your county commissioners, see if it was a friend of the county commissioners, see if it was a family member of the county commissioners, you know, something of that nature, and see what was going on there. And then go to campaign contributions on the supervisor of election site and see if those individuals are donating to the campaign of those specific things, and get you a big fat flashlight and you start shining light on that thing and you put it out there everywhere. We have the legislative delegation meetings that are coming up prior to the legislative session. And if you find that information, that's the citizens' opportunity to look these guys in the eye and say, this property right here, can you tell us about that? why have you not? Why are you silent about this? Because you get them.
We're living in a time too where, you know, corporations have been deemed as people and can make these huge and basically unlimited political campaign donations to people. So, you know, I've been involved in several campaigns for individuals, and it is so important for us as voters to know who we're putting in these seats. Back to that conversation, you know, I went to church with your grandma, I went fishing with your daddy. Well, that's great. Who is funding you?
Right.
Because
right.
ultimately that's who they're going to be doing the bidding for, is who gave them money. So, you know, be careful. And I encourage absolutely everybody, red, blue, NPA, doesn't matter. If you want to know what a candidate is most likely to perform for your community, find out who's giving them money for their campaign.
And when you see a campaign fund that has over $100,000 on a small local election in a city, that's a red flag.
Yeah,
You do not need to raise over $100,000 in a municipality that's of average size to get elected. You don't. Now, I understand thriving metropolises, perhaps, but that money is there as a red flag to you. You will see that they have that political backing and that power broker backing, and they're going to be beholden, as Elizabeth said, to those power brokers and not to you. When you look at the campaign amounts for those smaller campaign funds in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, which is much more realistic, you will see that most of those are individual $100 donations, and there are a lot more donations in small increments. So pay attention when you see $1,000 coming from a corporation or several corporations that are sister corporations. That's really one corporation that's getting multiple donations in the way they're legally allowed to get them in. So
you're absolutely right. And one of the neat things I think about what you're saying is when the citizens start to do this, recall doesn't become necessary as much because the citizens are doing their homework. In Santa Rosa County, my wife and some grandmothers, sounds crazy, they ended up getting labeled the Pitchfork Posse because they ended up getting some people elected into the Board of County Commissioners in the city because they did their due diligence. They paid for background checks on these candidates that were running for office. They came up with a series of questions, and they invited them to the Village Inn for breakfast, and they sat down and they had breakfast. And all of these grandmothers said, and they asked these questions, and they were able to see the person face to face and read the body language and see if they answered the questions directly or if they tried to fish their way around it or whatever the case may be. And they put out like a manual. You know, they had somebody type it up and they put it out and they distributed it to the community. They didn't tell the community how to vote. They just put the information out there and let the citizens decide that for themselves. And I think it was a fabulous idea. I think they did a great job.
That's amazing. You can't pull the wool over grandma's eyes.
Nope.
Yeah, no, you can't.
So, Chance, I do have one question then, and that is just for everybody out there. I know you're working awfully hard to try to get the right to recall for all the counties. So what can we as fellow Floridians do to help Florida Recall get that done? How can we help the other 47 counties?
The best thing you can do, after the last legislative session, one of the areas that we felt that we were the weakest was creating awareness. We have a QR code on our page that you can scan that with your phone, do a screenshot of it. And whenever you run into somebody and you get involved in a conversation about recall or whatever the case may be, you can give them that QR code. It takes them to our Twitter page. It takes it to our Facebook page. It takes us to our website. All of that is connected to that one QR code. Talk to your friends about it. Tell your family about it, whatever the case may be. Talk to your local officials about it. ask them at the legislative delegation meeting, I'd really like this recall Florida. Talk to your senators mostly, because the representatives voted for a bill 113-1.
Wow.
The senators are the issue. Back your senators in the corner and say, I like recall. I think you should like recall.
Mhm.
I want to know why this bill was stalled.
Yep.
Because I firmly believe this with all my heart. If the citizens got behind this, they're going to go back to Tallahassee. They're going to like, holy crap, the entire state is talking about recall.
Yep.
I love it.
So we got to create some awareness. Go to our website, recallflorida.com, and learn more about it. Become part of our Facebook page. And in our files section on our Facebook page, click on files. We have a list of Word documents and things that you can go and educate yourself on recall, ethics, and things of that nature. Print that off to your heart's desire. Take the code of conduct for county commissioners. That was a hoot. I took that into a Board of County Commissioners meeting and read that off to them. That went over well. So, but have fun with it. Print that stuff off, pass it out to other people that are doing work around the county, because we have got to have good, solid government in all of our counties, because corruption is so bad and so destructive. Just get the word out. That's the best thing you can do. And if you know some folks that would be interested in donating, donate on our page at recallflorida.com.
And I think what you guys are doing is so important. And we put the website on the bottom. It's scrolling. If you guys want to take a screenshot of it, go visit their website. I thank you so much for coming on here. You've given us a lot to consider and to think about. I don't think anyone that has been watching this, that is going to replay this, has not been touched by the corruption. And they may not have directly, as an advocate, dealt with it, but they've certainly seen it with all of this overdevelopment in other ways that they're not realizing it's happening. And we will certainly start talking about ways how we can help you elevate Recall Florida and get the word out across Florida, additional to the right to clean water and all of these other amazing initiatives that are happening. We have the power as people to do this. I don't want people watching this thinking there's nothing I can do, because there is. And this is it right here. We're having the conversation of things that you can do.
I absolutely agree with you, Steph. One of the things that I say on the Stand podcast is we the people is a term of ownership. And that term of ownership extends before the ballot box and it extends beyond the ballot box. And the worst thing for people to do, and it's what the power elite is, they want for us to lose hope. We cannot lose hope. We cannot lose hope. We have to band together. We have to be united, and we need to be an embodiment, a true embodiment of what it means. We, the people, we have to be an embodiment of that. We have to work together. We have to set aside our differences. We're not going to agree on everything. I'm okay with that, but I value you as an individual. I value you as an individual. We might not agree, but you still have value as a person. And that's what we have to project out to our members, down to the lowest echelon of society. I value you as a person.
Charles just commented unity, and that one word is so important right now.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we need. And you're right, we've got to put it together, put aside these small differences, all of these minuscule issues that may seem important on the surface that people want to be arguing about, and really kind of gut check ourselves as citizens.
Mm-hmm.
That
Correct.
what does this really come down to? I don't have to agree with you all the time, but I will absolutely defend your right to speak your mind. And that is I think that is just a fundamental part of who we are as Americans, and I think oftentimes the media distracts us from that. We get off on these little side roads, and we forget that there's a much bigger path there that we all need to be working on.
Absolutely.
No.
Well, thank you for everyone that has been a part of this conversation tonight. If you're replaying this, please, if you have any questions, we will get them over to Chance to have answered. We'll get you connected to them. We'll comment later so that way it's connected directly to their group so you know where to go to join and to follow his cause and what they're trying to accomplish. And I'm just going to close this out with, we look forward to seeing everyone that's going to be in Tallahassee on October 18th for the rally. I don't know if Chance you can go there, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to meet up while we're up there. And yeah, well, you guys have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful night. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, Del. I appreciate it.